Hi there, welcome to my first ever Zeus tutorial. It will be split into sections, and today this segment will cover the basics of how to get a Zeus mission set up. So, the first thing I would like to do when I start up a new mission that I want to make, I always go to Attributes and General and clear out the author's name. This is not necessary, but it's just a little fun thing to do. You can always name your mission here. Let's just do as an example, Hello World. And the author is the name of my unit, 99 Guards. So, whenever your players load up in the mission, they will see this mission called Hello World, and the author down below, which is always on the picture box, is the 99th Guards. This will also show up on Steam, so anyone could see what mission you're playing. And the mission today is going to be Hello World. Here you can change your independence allegiance. Right now they're set to peaceful on blue 4, aggressive on op 4. You can click on individual of these buttons. When you have it on both sides on swords, that means the independence will be against them, against both sides rather. And if you do hands on both, they'll be peaceful to both of them. And depending on what faction you want them to be hostile on, you just want to make sure that the two swords are on either sided, color-coded square or hexagon or whatever. The other thing I would like to do whenever I make my missions, I always like to do editable objects for Zeus. So every time they spawn in, every time a Zeus spawns in, and it saves them the time or the hassle of going through modules and put editable objects in. What this essentially does is make any object that you, as the mission editor, put down, they can eventually edit it and the placement of those objects anywhere they want when they need to. Next up is the environment. Pretty explainable. You can go ahead and just fiddle around with it, what time, what kind of weather you want. Do you want it to be rainy? Do you want to have lightning and such? In multiplayer, I like to go and do Zeus. I don't fiddle with the minimum or maximum required players, because if you have a server or a locally hosted server from your own computer, it will automatically set these numbers to the amount of slots you have available for players. The summary, that's just the summary that will be shown in the lobby. So if I do Hello World, you're alive. And once that is set up, the players will have the opportunity to look at the little description that I think this also loads while they're loading up, but it will mainly be in the lobby where they can read that. Enable AI is something that you want turned off, unless you want AI to take control over a unit that players don't occupy. That's essentially what that is. Auto-assign slots, that is something I don't have on most of the time. Respawn on custom position is something I definitely have on. That is so that players can select, or if you don't have that option on, they'll just select on the nearest spawn point that is available to them. I like to have the respawn delay up to at least 5 seconds or to 10. Most of the times I do just 10 seconds. And then the rule sets for the respawn, I always like to have select respawn position so that players can, just select their respawns. Show scoreboard, I don't really care about that much. Allow manual respawn, that is when they can select their own position. Tasks and revive, I don't use any of these. I don't use revive specifically due to the fact that Ace Medical will take over the settings regardless. Dynamic skill settings is probably something you could use. I don't necessarily use them because I just don't see any need in it once it, like, if the server already defines the AI skill. Next thing is, you are not going to need anything in performance unless you want something specific for the FPS to be a lot better for the players or something like that. Next up, I always go to game options, make sure all the settings are okay. Game options only apply to if I'm only hosting locally from my own computer. This will all be replaced, the game options will be replaced by a dedicated server if you have one, if you have a dedicated server, because usually dedicated servers have their own settings, game option settings, and that will override the game options you initially had on the mission editor, because the dedicated server is the host, so of course it will take over these options here. The configure add-ons part. There's two ways to get into this. You can go from settings, and add-on options. It essentially opens up the same screen. So, explaining this one a little bit, this is pretty much the Ace options of all the mods that you have. And a lot of the Ace settings here, as you see, all the medical settings, everything important that you want, especially when you're running Ace, is going to be configured over here. And you can also save it just like that. If I click here, save advanced ballistics, and let's say I want that to be in the mission, I just press save, give it a preset, and then press OK, and that will be part of the mission. But there's also kind of a way that Arma 3 won't always allow these settings to be in the mission. It wholly depends again on the dedicated server or local hosts that are hosting this. And in this case, I always export my little settings, copy them to clipboard, and then put them on a text file somewhere. I'll get into that, to the reason why I do that. Also, cool things, if you ever play on a mission that is hosted by someone else or a dedicated server, their presets from what is in the server is always saved or auto-saved for you. So every previously played server or mission file that you played on will showcase the auto-saved CBA settings that it had on the mission. For the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and use Siege of Kushkak. That was my unit's last operation, and it's the permanent settings for pretty much everything that is related to my unit. I'm going to go ahead and export this to clipboard, and I'll cover that sometime later. Afterwards, I like to go on Systems, Modules, then down to Multiplayer. I want to go to Respawn Position, and then open it up. I always do whatever side the players are going to be playing, I always put them on. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to do Blue 4. And then I'm going to do show to this side and its allies. Because for whatever reason, if you have it on everyone, or only the side, either which of these, it won't show up for all players. I don't know why. Armor 3 is kind of jank sometimes, so I always put it to this side and its allies, because for me it's always a surefire way that it is going to work, and it is going to be there when my players spawn in. And that pretty much covers up the segment of how I usually just set up my missions before I start putting units down. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I do when it comes to putting down units and making their loadouts. I always like to start with putting down the Zeus, and it doesn't matter what character they are, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to go ahead and place down an officer. What I do with the officer, I open up the attributes of said character and type in the variable name Z1. It doesn't matter what they are called, as long as you remember the variable name, that's good. Now, the role description, it doesn't matter, or, well, if you want it to be more formal, let's say the person that's supposed to be controlling this is probably specifically some person. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and Levitsky, which is my 99th Guard's name, and then the call sign that I usually give myself. You can go with Zeus to make it obvious that this person is in fact a Zeus. The @ call sign, or this thing here, the @ and then Zeus, will make sure that when players start up in the lobby, it will show their call sign and then their name below it. I'm just going to go ahead and going back and write that. So that's my Zeus. Now I want to go back to Systems, Modules, and Zeus, and down to Game Master. I usually just sync them. You don't necessarily have to sync them together, but I always do, because just for comfort. And I put the variable name to Z1. Now, this essentially... No, wait, hold on, not Z1. Here it goes. Z1 is the owner. So this essentially connects the owner, Z1, to the character that has the variable name Z1. So now these two things are connected together. Now, when it comes to the add-ons here, the default add-ons are always set to all official add-ons. So that only means all the official add-ons, all the Armor 3 vanilla add-ons is the only thing that the Zeus can spawn in and fiddle with. Aside also the modded units that are in the mission. But if you do all add-ons, including unofficial add-ons, or unofficial ones rather, this will make sure that the Zeus, when he presses Y, he has all of the units, everything that isn't Armor 3 vanilla at his disposal, pretty much. Forced interface is something I just don't want to touch, because I like to spawn in and interact with my people, instead of having to press Y and then go and then, talk to my guys and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and place down a squad leader. So this is going to be my first squad. And then I'm just going to go ahead and place down a rifleman, maybe one grenadier, and then a combat lifesaver. So this is the first squad. And I always like to have them, you want to go to attributes and make them playable. So this way all the players are able to select whatever units is available in the lobby. And then to change their name, or well, to put their call signs, I always do squad leader, and then at whatever squad they're supposed to be. Excuse me, let me put my headphones in charge real quick. Yeah, so where were we? Yes.
Charging battery.
I like to do squad 1. So when the players load up in the lobby, they're gonna see that this unit is not called Alpha 1-2. It's gonna be called Squad 1, and the role of the name is gonna be Squad Leader. And you can pretty much do change the name of these units all individually. Let's say Ultramarine without the at, just like that. And when they spawn in the lobby, they are going to be named Ultramarine. So that's a cool little tidbit there. To change the loadout, you can go here and just go around and fiddle out with their loadouts. Give them anything like a wider range of things. And then you do export and apply. So if this were an AI, the loadout that I just gave this unit will apply to the AI, but not the player. And the way to make sure that the loadout that I just gave to this AI will also proceed to the player, you have to do what I just did, is export and apply, and then you can go down here in the attributes of said character or unit. In the init, you just do Control V. And that will make sure that the player that spawns on this unit will have the loadout that this specific character should have. And pretty much you can just repeat the process and you know, like just to give them anything and just do the same thing. Export, apply, Control V. And you can also do, which is a pretty neat thing, is if I were to go to this person over here, do Control C, which is copy it to clipboard, you can just go ahead and copy and paste it to this character as well. Or even, if you want to be lazy, you can go like that, Control V, and it should give them these two characters the same loadout of the first person over here. Pretty cool. To make a arsenal, you want to go down. You can just type in crate or just whatever. You can make anything into an arsenal. Let's say this stack of crates over here is the arsenal today. And then you can just open up the attributes and go down to Ace Arsenal. Object Ace Arsenal in the attributes. From there on, you can just go ahead and click on any weapon, any uniform, and just any equipment that that you want the characters to have right here, and apply it essentially. If you had multiple weapons and you want to put like optics for them, you can also just do it over here. Add compatible items. Add compatible items on each weapon attachment there is, and also the ammunition tab. And that will add all the available weapons and optics and ammunition for that set weapon. Probably the most important things you'll want to actually set up is the binoculars, maps, compass, radios, watches. Depends if you want to have them have them a GPS. It depends on what kind of era they are. I always like to have my pilots to have the GPS so they know where they're going. It's just completely essential. And the grenades over here. And probably the most important one of all is that you actually take your time to go through this plus sign over here and mark all the important ace stuff that the characters are going to need, or the players, sorry. especially just all the medical stuff, AED, not bananas, bandages, blood, IVs. The IVs and all the other equipment is not ACE. It is ACE Pharmacy, so pretty much a supplement of that. Earplugs, not going to need earplugs because we don't really have earplugs in my missions. Fortified tool, not something that we use. Entrenching tool is definitely important. And as long as you have all the medical supplies and everything, that should be completely fine. But if you do not have, you can always place down, and if you just type in ACE, scroll a little down, and then you see medical supply, and that should provide your troops the necessary equipment. So that's essentially that. That's how you can set up an arsenal. You can also do it in-game, but when you do it in-game, it's going to make a global arsenal of all the stuff that you don't want your characters to have. There is also another way which involves a script on how to get an arsenal completely based off the loadouts of you give these characters. I do not have them right now, but I do believe that Remy has a pretty good tutorial that actually explains on how to use that script to get the loadouts over here. Essentially, that is pretty much it. How I prepare my kits, my Zeus, and slots in the arsenal. So, let's say you want the players to go ahead and take over Galati and, just capture it. Simple, basic objectives. And naturally, you want to have some enemies around. Just go ahead and place down some enemies in the houses, in the buildings, on the terraces, and all these broken down buildings over here. Go ahead and place them down. You can set their position, either lying down, crouching, standing up, and such. And let's go ahead and do that. Do this process over here. Place them in positions where you want the enemies to come, or the players to go through, and they should expect enemies. Now, you don't need to do that necessarily for every building. That's something I never do. Could go ahead and go into props. You go to structures, or whatever, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to place down over here. Let's say I want to place down a junk barricade, a tall barricade, a barricade where a hole is. Now let's say you wanted to place a character behind the sandbags, and you want him to just stay in this position and watch for players to come down, and whenever you want, you can definitely just go ahead and remote control him and shoot. One of the ways to make sure that all these enemies that we just placed down over here are in fact going to be in their position is just to go down over here, attributes, attributes, object AI. You want to go down, press path, and there we go. This will make sure that all of these enemies that we just put in buildings and such will eventually just stay in their position. They won't move, but they will still retain their ability to rotate around and shoot at players coming from wherever. And that's pretty much it, really. How I set up my missions usually when they're not completely advanced. If you want to make it obvious as well, you can go ahead and just go place it in an objective, write some down. Make a dot and just go attack position. X marks the objective, dot marks the description. You don't necessarily need to do it like that. You don't even need to have any markers on the maps, because, how I like to do it is just doing the briefing inside in-game and marking the objectives down in the map. But you can also just use this to show what areas are in control. If you're trying to make a world seem like it is dynamic, or it is alive, or there's actually a war zone, let's say, oh, this is a red zone. No, I don't even need to put any enemies in there, but it's just so the players know, oh, this is an enemy controlled area, and if they do go down there, I will start spawning in enemies or whatever. That you could usually use these square boxes or ellipses to mark area of operations where they're supposed to be operating. You could go, change the texture so it's a grid, 4 diagonal. I like to use 4 diagonal so it's not completely obscuring the map, but they can still see what is within this area. You could also do border, I do believe. No, that's not it. Border. So it only does a circle border around. But yeah, that is pretty much it. It is a simple process. Unless you want to do some advanced stuff. And I can definitely perhaps cover that someday, or write it down in the tutorial channel that I have on my unit's Discord. Only my members are going to have that access to that, so if anyone that wants to check that out, it's only going to be available for my members. I'm sorry. But yeah, this is pretty much it. It is a basic process, and you can just be creative, have fun with it. There are ways to make it more, like, a lot cooler, and if that's something you want to try and do, definitely go ahead and try. Maybe just contact me and I will help you out with that. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So there is one thing that I actually forgot to mention. When you're done with your mission and you want the add-on settings to actually be permanently on your mission file. Let's say, wait, that's not the right folder. Let's say you're done with your mission. You want to go here and make sure that the exact settings that you had on that mission actually go through once you're going to host them. Is access the folder, go ahead and copy it. I like to have a specific server folder for this, and this is my server hosting folder here for Arma 3 specifically. And then I'm just going to go ahead and delete this over here just for the sake of the tutorial, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paste it and replace it because I already have the file over there. Actually, you know what, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to delete it. So let's say, fresh mission, set it in here, and it looks normal. It is normal, but it doesn't have the add-on settings actually predefined in the mission. And I usually have a lot of CBA settings or add-on settings already written up, copied from when I exported my settings initially. And this you'll probably recognize this whole script over here that I script over here when you copy your add-on settings to clipboard. I took the liberty to make a text file for it already made, and then I just go ahead. And then I just go ahead and copy the text file and place it in like that. And then I rename it to CBA _ settings dot, not txt, No, not SVF. That is a whole other file, I do believe. CBA setting dot SQF, and then just go and press yes. And now it's an SQF file, and when the dedicated server or the local host reads these files inside the mission, it will take this one into account, and voila, you will have all this settings or add-on settings that you want initially to be in the mission, just already hard coded into the mission, just because of this simple little text file. Though sometimes you may have to log into your own server admin and do restarts to actually take fully effect. Sometimes when you launch the mission for the first time, it's going to have another whole add-on settings, and it's not going to be the correct ones. So definitely double check if all the add-on settings are correct and the mission settings are correct and all that such. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and then you actually do need a PBO Manager. I already have a PBO Manager here, and you just want to make sure it's packed into a PBO. And then your mission is fully ready. If you are gonna do any updates in your mission, you can definitely just go back to your Arma 3 folder, copy it, and just copy and paste it, and replace the mission SQM with the newly updated mission. Same thing with the CBA settings. If you want to change anything in the settings, you can definitely just go ahead and do that. But make sure that you replace all the lines that are inside this one over here with the newer ones. Anyway, that is pretty much it on how I do it. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video actually helped you out a little bit.